My friend, how amazing is it to have you here? It's so cool that you're here, taking a moment to feed your mind and body with courageous and optimistic perspectives that will fill your life with more hope, more staying power, and increased motivation. I promise you, the question that you asked, how can I deal with failing better, is just so brave and awesome. Today's podcast is all about learning how to fall up. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, listen in and find out. But first, let me tell you just a little bit about rock climbing. Rock climbing is one of my very favorite hobbies. I love the physical and mental aspects of climbing. It is an awesome activity that can be performed in the most beautiful places. I started climbing about 20 years ago, just as I was beginning my career as a therapist. Man, the moment I was introduced to it, I knew I wanted to keep doing this awesome activity and this awesome sport. At the time, I was working and trying to build my own business, and as a result, I would have a few hours here and there when my day was open. And because I live in St. George, Utah, there's like this world-class climbable rock all around us. During those breaks, I would escape the office and get a quick climb in. As I began to climb in Boulder, which is kind of like free climbing, more often and experiencing just the fun of it that would have brought into my life, I also began to recognize that there was some therapeutic value to that activity, to that sport. Climbing had these experiential and powerful ways of teaching the very same things that I was trying to teach in my office. The language of climbing also fit really nicely into my therapeutic model. So I decided, man, I am going to start bringing clients up here and rock climbing with them. And so began this super cool partnership of rock climbing, bouldering, canyoneering, rappelling as a therapeutic and experiential tool for me. Not only was it a great mechanism to teach principles, but by the time people were done with me, they also were great climbers. I was climbing with people not just for the sake of the experience. I was climbing with them so that by the time our time was done, they were legit climbers. One of the beautiful lessons that climbing teaches in such a natural way is the redefinition of failure, or as I call it, actually Buzz Lightyear called it, falling with style. Man, that guy was wise. Redefining failure is critical. Many people look at failed attempts as an overall and general failure. They identify and adopt the identity of being failures. They see failed attempts and immediately begin to generalize their failure into the future. Here's an example. I failed the math test. I'll never be good at math. I hate math. I'm just not good at math. Individuals see their own mistakes and, more tragically, the mistakes of others, and believe that they are chronic, believing that they're condemned to repeat the very same things over and over and over again. Somewhere in our lives, in the culture we live, a lot of us seem to be brought up with this common misconception of what failure is, and more importantly, what it means to you. When I first take clients rock climbing, I know they're going to fail in almost every possible way initially, and yet in between those failed attempts, there's going to be growth. Their skills are going to build, their muscles are going to grow, and their desire to climb is going to grow. While they're climbing, I'll usually throw out a couple of tips, and sometimes I'll show them how to climb a certain climb. And when I do that, a lot of my amazing clients will say, "Dude, you make that look so easy." And my response to them is very simple. I usually say something like this: the only difference between you and me on the rock is time and experience. I don't have any special ability or talent. In fact, I'm short and not a super flexible dude. But I promise you that as you begin to invest a little bit of time, energy, and effort into climbing, your very body will change and transform itself to help you succeed in this amazing activity. Time, experience, and some effort is all that you need. My goal for them is to see failure as part of the miraculous process of growth and evolution. I will often give my clients climbing projects knowing that it will take them months to complete, falling and failing hundreds of times only to succeed once. It's beautiful. In a way, I use climbing to remove the sting out of failure. As a result, my clients will usually soften up their relationship to failing and begin to see it not as some condemning chronic piece of their identity, but as a present inability to complete a task at that very moment. That will change with a little bit of time, energy, and effort. I call this overall transformation learning how to fall or fail with style, or falling up. Falling is a very exciting and scary part of climbing. As the clients that I work with begin to evolve their climbing ability, I teach them to become lead climbers. I'm not going to go into the long, detailed explanation of what that means, but suffice it to say that as you begin to lead climb, your risk of falling 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 feet is increased. All of this falling is done safely, of course, but the primitive terror of falling is real. Part of lead climbing is learning and practicing falling and how to do it properly. Needless to say, it's one of my favorite parts of doing this adventure-based therapy with people. It just teaches them these really critical concepts. I'm just going to show you two. One, failing is an essential part of becoming excellent at something. Failing is natural. I don't need to resist it or object to the idea of failing. Simply utilize it as part of the process. Don't let failure metastasize like a cancer in your brain into something that it isn't, namely chronic, or predictive of some future performance or something that you personalize into your life. You may fail more than you succeed sometimes. Sometimes the odds are not in our favor, so we may as well change the way we interact with failure. I understand that others may not view it this way, so be it. But you and I promise you, if you will adopt that perspective, it will be helpful to you. Number two, your failure now is part of your success later. Within your mistakes, within your failings are the seeds of progress. If we don't get in the way with our own insecurities and constant comparisons to others and what they're doing, shift quickly from your failures. When my clients fall or fail at the rock, I simply tell them, make an adjustment and let's get back on the rock. I explain it simply as see it, think it, and climb it. Your ability to shift from your mistakes and pout because things didn't turn out the way you wanted to is a sign of emotional immaturity. So teach your brain to respond appropriately to failing, in part because you'll probably be failing and making lots of mistakes. If possible, find some humor and celebrate some of your failures. Sometimes this isn't possible at the exact moment, though I find that often we can look through our old mistakes and laugh at them. I remember Tony Robbins saying, if I'm going to laugh at it later, why not laugh at it now? This follows the logic that if you fail at something and learn from it, is it really failing? It's interesting how things shift and shape with time when they're allowed to breathe instead of being stifled by our condemnation and our fear. You'll often see me at the rock congratulating someone on the awesome fall they just had. It's all part of teaching your brain to work in a more advantageous and correct way for you. As you begin to change your definition of failure and shaping your responses to it, you'll be able to deal more patiently with yourself, and that compassion will naturally extend to other people around you. Instead of condemning others, you will help them. Instead of being robbed of motivation every time you fail, you'll stay motivated for longer periods of time. Instead of identifying with your mistakes, you're going to learn from them. I realize that for some of you this may feel a bit unnatural, or it may require some mental gymnastics for you to adopt this perspective of failing, but so much depends on it. Viewing your failures with this optimistic structure keeps you flexible, motivated, happier, and more resilient. And studies show that your friendships, relationships, academic efforts will be more successful if you do. So my friend, remember to take Buzz Lightyear's advice and begin educating your brain that you too can fall with style. And little by little, you begin to experience the increased motivation that comes from recognizing that we can always fall up.